like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
All right, so we've got a listener request here to deep dive into this Arsenal match against Brighton. Looks like they sent in an article summarizing the game and giving us those all-important player ratings, which is always fun. And what I find really interesting here is that Arsenal's in this really tight race for the title, with Liverpool.
Right.
And this match, could really shake things up in the standings.
Yeah.
So I know the final score was a draw. 1-1.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to kind of go beyond the surface here.
Sure.
And understand what this means, for Arsenal's title hopes.
Yeah, you're right. The scoreline definitely doesn't tell the whole story. This draw against Brighton,
right.
I mean, it could be a real setback for Arsenal, especially when you consider that Liverpool's in such good form right now, and they could really, pull ahead in the standings.
So even though a draw isn't a loss, it feels like a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Especially considering Arsenal actually scored first.
Right.
So tell me about that opening goal.
Yeah, it was Ethan Nwaneri. Put Arsenal ahead in the first half, which is pretty impressive, I think, for a young player in such a crucial game.
Yeah.
It shows you the manager has faith in him.
Right.
And really highlights his potential as a future star. But as you know, scoring first doesn't guarantee anything in soccer.
No, it's true. But it does usually give a team a psychological edge, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, we're up 1-0.
Yeah.
What happened in the second half that allowed Brighton to come back?
Yeah, Brighton really stepped up their game after halftime. Even though they were trailing, they were much more aggressive.
Right.
And they earned a penalty, which João Pedro converted to level the score.
Okay.
It was a clever bit of play from Brighton and a real turning point in the match.
Hold on. When you say clever bit of play, do you mean like they were specifically targeting a weakness in Arsenal's defense, or was it just kind of a lucky break for them?
It's a bit of both, actually. I mean, Brighton was clearly the better side in the second half. They were pressuring Arsenal, forcing mistakes. The penalty itself came from a challenge in the box.
Right.
And, while there might have been an element of luck involved, it was ultimately Brighton's proactive approach that created the opportunity.
So you're saying their tactics led to that penalty?
Yeah.
Not just some random incident.
Exactly. Brighton's manager, Fabian Hürzeler, deserves credit for how he set up his team. They were very disciplined, organized, particularly in midfield.
Okay.
Which disrupted Arsenal's usual flow and allowed Brighton to dictate the pace of the game.
I'm starting to see how this draw was more than just a minor slip-up for Arsenal.
Yeah.
Like they were outplayed in that second half.
Yeah.
And Brighton could even argue they deserved to win.
Right.
But even with all that momentum, they couldn't find another goal.
That's right. While Brighton was definitely the more threatening side, for a good chunk of the second half, they couldn't quite capitalize on their dominance. But let's not forget, a draw is still a positive result for a team like Brighton, especially against a title contender like Arsenal.
It's funny how a draw can feel so different.
Right.
For both sides.
For sure.
Like for Brighton, it's a point gained.
Yeah.
For Arsenal, it's 2 points dropped.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in the context of this title race with Liverpool.
That's the crucial point. Remember, Liverpool is, breathing down Arsenal's neck.
Right.
And has been playing exceptionally well. A draw for Arsenal, even against a tough opponent like Brighton, gives Liverpool a chance to potentially extend their lead at the top of the table.
Okay, so the stakes were higher than they might have seemed at first glance.
For sure.
A draw isn't a disaster,
Yeah.
but it definitely complicates things for Arsenal.
It does.
Before we dive into the individual performances and what this means for the title race, let's take a quick look at those player ratings from FootMob that you mentioned.
Excellent idea. Those ratings often reveal a lot about how a match actually unfolded, sometimes even more than the basic stats.
Looking at Brighton's side, João Pedro stands out with an 8.3 rating.
Yeah.
Not surprising given that he scored that
Yeah.
game-changing penalty.
Right.
But was it just the goal, or was there more to his performance?
It was definitely more than just the goal. Pedro was a constant threat throughout the match.
Okay.
His movement, his passing, and his ability to create chances for himself and his teammates were all top-notch. The rating really reflects his overall impact on the game, not just that one moment of brilliance.
So while that penalty goal might be the highlight, it was his consistent performance throughout the match that earned him that high rating. What about Arsenal's standout players?
On the Arsenal side, we see high ratings for Partey, Calafiori, Rice Marino, and of course Nwaneri for that early goal.
Right.
But here's where the so what comes in.
Okay, I'm intrigued. You're about to tell me there's more to these ratings than meets the eye.
Exactly. While these players individually performed well, the team as a whole struggled, particularly in that second half.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that soccer is ultimately a team sport.
Right.
And even brilliant individual performances can be overshadowed by a lack of cohesion or tactical discipline.
That makes a lot of sense. A few great players can't always carry an entire team.
Right.
If the overall game plan isn't working. But I'm curious, how did those individual performances actually contribute to the team's struggles?
That's a great question.
Did any of these highly rated players play a part in Brighton gaining control of the match?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it leads us to a really interesting point. Two of Arsenal's substitutes, Martinelli and Ødegaard, both well-respected players, actually received surprisingly low ratings.
Now that is surprising. You'd think bringing in fresh legs,
right,
especially attacking players of that caliber,
yeah,
would improve their chances. What happened there?
It's hard to say for sure without a deeper dive into the specific moments of the game, but this raises a few key questions. Did the substitutions disrupt the team's rhythm? Was it a tactical miscalculation by the manager? Or did Brighton simply adjust their approach to neutralize those specific threats?
Yeah.
It's something we need to consider when evaluating the overall team performance.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
We're going beyond just the score and the individual highlights.
For sure.
And starting to see this tactical chess match that was happening beneath the surface. It sounds like Brighton was well prepared.
Yeah.
And their manager, Herzler, made some smart moves to exploit Arsenal's weaknesses.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to the broader implications of this draw.
Right.
Remember, Arsenal is in a tight title race.
Yeah.
While this result might not seem like a major setback on its own, it could have a ripple effect throughout the season, especially if Liverpool capitalizes on this slip-up.
So this draw has some, potentially big consequences for the title race.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears for a moment.
Sure.
And talk about Brighton. I mean, they came into this match as underdogs, but walked away with a valuable point against a top contender.
Right.
So what were some of the key takeaways from their performance?
One thing that really stood out to me was their tactical discipline. They were incredibly organized, especially in midfield. And they really frustrated Arsenal's attempts to build up play. It wasn't just about defending deep.
Right.
They actively pressed Arsenal and forced turnovers in key areas. It's something you don't always see from teams facing, such strong opposition.
So they weren't just reacting to Arsenal.
Right.
They were dictating the tempo.
Yeah.
And disrupting their rhythm.
Exactly. And that's a testament to their manager, Fabian Herzler. He clearly had a game plan, and his players executed it brilliantly. Makes you wonder, is this a sign of things to come from Brighton? Are they ready to challenge the traditional top teams on a consistent basis?
You mentioned earlier that Brighton could even argue they deserve to win. Do you think this performance indicates that they're no longer content with simply avoiding relegation? Could they be aiming for a European spot this season?
It's definitely a possibility. Their performance against Arsenal showed they have the quality and the tactical awareness to compete with the best.
Right.
Of course, consistency is key in a long season.
Sure.
But this result will undoubtedly boost their confidence.
Yeah.
And could be a springboard for bigger things.
All right, let's talk about the player who really stole the show for Brighton.
Yeah.
Pedro.
Yeah.
Not only did he score that crucial penalty,
right,
but he earned an impressive 8.3 rating.
Yeah, he did.
From FootMob. So what makes him such a dangerous player?
He's got a fantastic combination of technical skill, vision, and composure. He's not just a goal scorer, he's a playmaker. He can create chances for himself and his teammates, and he always seems to be in the right place at the right time. Plus, he's only 21 years old.
Wow.
So his potential is truly exciting.
So he's not just a flash in the pan.
I don't think so.
He's the real deal.
I think so.
Could he be a future star for Brighton, or even a target for some of the bigger clubs?
I think he's definitely one to watch. If he continues to develop at this rate, there's no doubt he'll be attracting attention from all over Europe.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how he handles the pressure and expectation as the season goes on.
Speaking of pressure and expectation, let's circle back to Arsenal.
Okay.
And the title race. This draw against Brighton
wasn't
a fatal blow, but it does raise some concerns. What do you think they need to do to get back on track and keep pace with Liverpool?
They need to find a way to regain control in midfield. Brighton exposed some vulnerabilities in that area.
Okay.
And if Arsenal wants to challenge for the title, they need to be more dominant in possession and dictate the tempo of the game. This match highlighted that they can be vulnerable when teams disrupt their flow and force them to play on the back foot.
So it's not just about having talented individuals. It's about how those individuals work together as a unit.
Exactly.
Especially in midfield where the game's often won or lost.
Right.
Yeah.
They need to be more cohesive, more disciplined, and perhaps make some tactical adjustments to ensure they don't get overrun in midfield again.
Earlier, we talked about how those late substitutions, Martinelli and Odegaard, actually received low ratings despite their reputations.
Right.
Do you think that points to a bigger issue with Arsenal's depth? Or maybe a lack of tactical flexibility from the manager?
That's a great point. And it's something I think the manager will need to address.
Yeah.
You know, if your star players aren't having the desired impact when they come off the bench, it might be time to reassess your approach. Perhaps it's about finding the right combinations of players, or maybe it's about having a plan B when the initial strategy isn't working.
So it's not just about having a strong starting 11.
No.
It's about having options and the ability to adapt to different situations.
Absolutely. In a long and demanding season.
Right.
Squad depth and tactical flexibility can be just as important as individual talent.
This draw against Brighton has really highlighted that, hasn't it?
No, it has.
It has. It's revealed some potential cracks in Arsenal's armor that they'll need to address if they want to stay in the title race.
It has indeed. It'll be fascinating to see how they respond in their next few matches. Will they make the necessary adjustments, or will this draw be a turning point in the wrong direction?
We've talked a lot about tactics and strategy.
We have.
But let's not forget the human element here.
Yeah.
How do you think this result will impact the players psychologically? Will it dent their confidence, or will it motivate them to prove their doubters wrong?
That's a key question, and it's something that will be playing on the minds of both the players and the manager.
Sure.
You know, it's easy to lose momentum after a setback like this.
Yeah.
But it's also an opportunity to show resilience and character. How they respond to this adversity will be a major factor in their title aspirations.
So this draw was more than just a blip on the radar.
Right.
It was a test of their mental fortitude.
Yeah.
Their ability to bounce back and maintain their belief.
Exactly. And it's not just about Arsenal. It's about the entire Premier League landscape. You know, we're seeing teams like Brighton stepping up and challenging the established order. It's making for a really exciting and unpredictable season.
Yeah.
And this match was a perfect example of that.
I'm really starting to appreciate the depth and complexity of this seemingly simple draw.
Yeah.
It's not just about the score line.
Right.
It's about these tactical battles.
For sure.
The individual performances, the psychological impact, and the evolving dynamics of the Premier League itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we haven't even touched on the wider context of the title race and the upcoming matches.
Right.
There's still so much to discuss, and I'm eager to see how these storylines unfold.
It feels like we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah. Yeah.
This one match has sparked so many interesting conversations.
For sure.
About tactics, player development, and the bigger picture of the Premier League.
Right.
But before we go too far down that road, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
This changing landscape of the league itself. What did you mean by that?
Well, for a long time, the Premier League has been dominated by a handful of elite clubs.
Right.
But we're starting to see a shift.
Okay.
Teams like Brighton are becoming more ambitious, more tactically sophisticated, and they're investing in young talent. They're no longer content with just surviving in the top flight. They want to compete at the highest level.
That's a great point. And it's not just Brighton, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing other teams like Brentford and Fulham making waves.
Absolutely.
And challenging that traditional hierarchy.
For sure. Yeah. Exactly. It's making the league more competitive, more unpredictable.
Right.
And frankly, a lot more exciting for fans. This match between Brighton and Arsenal is a perfect example of that. A few years ago, this would have been considered a routine win for Arsenal. But now, these so-called smaller teams are demanding to be taken seriously.
So in a way, this draw represents a bigger shift in the balance of power within the Premier League. It's no longer a foregone conclusion that the big clubs will always dominate.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. The gap between the top teams and the rest of the league is shrinking.
Right.
And that's creating a more dynamic and engaging competition. It's forcing the traditional powerhouses to up their game and making every match feel more significant.
Speaking of significance, let's go back to Ethan Nwaneri for a moment. Scoring a goal at his age in the Premier League is an incredible achievement. What does his emergence and Arsenal's willingness to give him a chance tell us about the club's approach to player development?
I think it shows a real commitment to nurturing young talent.
Okay.
They're not just relying on established stars. They're building for the future. And it's not just about giving young players a few minutes here and there. It's about trusting them in crucial moments, in high-pressure games.
Yeah.
That kind of faith can do wonders for a young player's confidence and development.
It's an exciting sign for Arsenal fans, isn't it?
It is.
To see a young player like Nwaneri come through the ranks and make an impact at the top level.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, does relying on young players, even talented ones, come with risks?
Sure.
Especially when you're a club with title aspirations.
Of course, there are always risks associated with youth.
Right.
Consistency can be a challenge.
Yeah.
And young players often need time to adapt to the physicality and tactical demands of the Premier League. But the potential rewards can be huge. Young players bring energy, enthusiasm, and a fearlessness that can be infectious. And if they're given the right guidance and support, they can develop into world-class talents.
Look at a balancing act, right?
It is.
Finding the right mix of experience and youth. Nurturing talent while still competing at the highest level. It's a challenge that all top clubs face.
Absolutely. And it's something that will be particularly interesting to watch with Arsenal this season. They've got a young and exciting squad.
Right.
But they also have the pressure of expectation.
Yeah.
Can they find the right balance, the right formula to challenge for the title? That's the big question.
And it's a question that we'll be exploring throughout the season right here on The Deep Dive. This match between Brighton and Arsenal has given us a lot to think about.
For sure.
From the tactical nuances to the individual performances to the broader trends shaping the Premier League.
It has.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even a seemingly ordinary draw can reveal so much about the state of the game, the ambitions of the clubs, and the potential for future stars to emerge.
So to our listener who sent in this fantastic article,
Yeah.
thank you for giving us the opportunity to delve deeper into this fascinating match.
Really good one.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
But we want to leave you with one final thought. We've talked about Arsenal's tactical challenges,
Yeah.
their need to regain control in midfield, and their reliance on young talent. But what stands out to you as the most important factor in their pursuit of the title? Is it about tactical adjustments, player development, or something else entirely? We'll leave that for you to ponder as we continue to follow Arsenal's journey this season.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're bubbly.